The Blizzard one's clean. Like, everyone has a launcher now.
Yeah.
GOG has one. Origin has one. Obviously, you know.
Obviously.
GOG's is late to the party, but I like it. Blizzard's I like a lot, but I wish that I could integrate more games into it. Like,
don't you wish someone could come up with a universal launcher? It'd be so cool.
well, technically Steam can, as long as you could put Notepad in the Steam one if you wanted to, as long as you could find the exe for it. And I used to just run. I played Diablo far more than I ever played World of Warcraft, but I used to just run Diablo out of Steam until Blizzard came up with their own. I don't know. It just sucks that I have to go. You know, I have to go to this one for this game or that one for that game, and that's a pain in the ass. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I want that thing to be satisfying. You know, like Origin is so unsatisfying.
Oh, Origin is horrible. It's like kissing your sister. And which sucks because I am a huge Command & Conquer fan, and I own all of the Command & Conquers through Origin.
Yeah.
So I have to bite the bullet when I want to play one.
I can't. I will not. I just don't play any of their games. It's sad because like I was one of the people who actually liked the new SimCity. Or I should say, I wanted to play the new SimCity. I started playing the new SimCity. I didn't, blow my top and write a 1-star review on Amazon. And Origin just has steered me away from them to the point that I don't want to play the game because I don't want to launch the launcher.
Fair enough. I can't really fault you for that. It's yeah. It sucks. Everything about it sucks. And I hate how I play FIFA religiously on PS4, and you had to log in with your Origin account on PS4. But when they first started doing it, I just like put in an email, so it linked my FIFA character and all my stats to that one. But to get it on my current one, so I could actually play it, I actually had to lose everything and essentially start over, which kind of pissed me off. So, yeah.
All right, Brad and Anessa, you guys ready?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Anessa, this is Randy, our guest this week. Randy, this is Anessa.
Hello. Are the two of you on one channel here? That's so cool.
Yes, we live together.
Yes.
Hi.
They're boyfriend and girlfriend, and they're on the podcast. It's amazing.
We actually met doing
we
one
met.
of the podcasts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Pile O Funko. That's nice.
Yes.
Oh, you don't.
That's our addiction. Right
We would have to spin the camera around, and you can see all of my DC Universe action figures I have standing up.
No, you don't need to do that.
It's crazy.
And it's Randy. It's called the Nerdatorium. That's what.
Yes,
It's our Nerdatorium
I
studio.
understand.
Yeah, we just hung up our Welcome to Night Vale posters that we got from the past couple of tours that they've done. So.
Boy, that's weird, isn't it? Like, about 6 years ago, we had a series of meetings. Scott Johnson, Brian Dunaway, myself, and other people off and on talking about let's make an entirely fictional podcast. And we had some good ideas, but we could not convince ourselves that it was going to get an audience. And at the time, we were trying to find sponsors for podcasts that, had an audience, and the numbers we wanted, we just couldn't envision. And Night Vale came along, and we're like, yeah. And then we just have sat and watched it get bigger and bigger, and
Yeah,
they've never really done anything like that new and different. They just keep doing this commitment to this story. I really regret that we didn't run with a totally fictional show.
Yeah, because there's several that have. Well, I mean, probably Welcome to Night Vale's the biggest one to really take off and whatnot. But there's several podcasts that are fairly large that have storylines to them And even like the Thrilling Adventure Hour has different little sub stories to it, and that's a lot of fun. But it didn't initially start out as a podcast, I don't think.
It's, you know what? It's lightning in a bottle. You know, you never know what's going to take off.
Yeah, and then you've got I can't think of the name of the zombie one that just wrapped up, and they're getting ready to start a different kind of spin-off series off of
I
it.
listened to that years ago. I know what one you're talking about too. Yeah.
But yeah, it went on for quite a while, and it's got like a fairly sizable following, and it's just amazing how these storylines have kind of taken off, and especially Night Vale, because it's like you start listening to it, and I think I had asked Brad if he had listened to it, and he said no. And then I asked him again a couple months later, and he's like, yeah, I started listening to it. I couldn't stand the guy. He just droned on and on.
It
He's
is an
like, maybe if
acquired
it was-
taste, isn't it?
Yeah, well, because it was funny, because Brad had said, if it was, maybe 20, 30 minutes long, he would have enjoyed it. And I'm like, but sweetie, like the podcast is only like 20 minutes. And so he went back and sat down and listened to it and not try to multitask, and then he really
And yeah, once
enjoyed
I was
it.
actually not trying to do it at my desk while working, that made a colossal difference.
So, and I don't know, I've really enjoyed it, and I really like what they've done with the live shows. Those have been a lot of fun, and I caught The Librarian twice within, I think it was about a 1 week period, like one weekend in Dallas and one weekend in Chicago, and there was even variation between the two depending on what cast members were able to be there. I mean, it was the same essential storyline, but how they went about telling it was a bit different. You had a different musical, or a different weather forecast. So even if you do end up catching it a couple of different times in its tour, it's going to be different. So, and
That's interesting.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
let's start the podcast.
Yep, we should totally do that.
All right. If you can, please mute your mics. I'm going to play an intro, and then we'll start, okay?
okay.
So here we go. Stand by.
This is Alpha Geek Radio. Visit tunein.alphageekradio.com to learn
The
more.
following is a presentation of GalacticNetcasts.com.
Attention, Galactic Collective. The SciFi Geeks Club is next. Please, stand by. You can take part in the podcast by providing feedback. Send a message to galacticnetcasts@gmail.com. Call the voicemail number at 805-328-3966, or leave an audio message directly on our website, galacticnetcasts.com. We also invite you to join the Galactic Collective. All the information and links can be found at gncasts.com/Galactic Collective. That's gncasts.com/Galactic Collective. Now, without further ado, hear ye, hear ye! Another meeting of the SciFi Geeks Club is officially called to order!
All right, I'm Dave Nelson. Joining me on the host panel this time around is Brad Ludwig, Anessa Moyens, and Matt Stein. How are you guys?
Good.
Excellent.
Everything's so classy when a British person says it.
Yes, I've thought that for a long time, and I'm glad that we have Mr. Johnston doing that intro and outro for us. But you know what I think is even classier is having a guest, the caliber of our guest this week. He is the former host of the Instance podcast on the Frogpants Network and current one quarter of the FilmSack podcast, also from Frogpants. Welcome to the SciFi Geeks Club, Mr. Randy Jordan. Randy, how are you?
Hello! Are we all going to be talking like this?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The Rhine and Spine.
Okay, Eliza Doolittle.
It is.
That's the only
it is
kind of British
true.
accent I can do is a Cockney.
It is true that I do think sci-fi, for some reason, suits any British accent. You put someone in space, and they have a British accent. I don't know why. It sounds right to me.
You know what's even weirder? You know what's really weird is not knowing somebody has a British accent, and all of a sudden they just spring it on you. Like I was watching the Talking Dead after, I think it was maybe the final episode last season, and they had the guy that plays, I always forget his name, but he's been following Rick and the guys for a while now. He hung out with Rick on, I think, the first or second episode. You guys know who I'm talking about?
Oh, the one with the kid in the first season?
Yeah.
Morgan?
Yeah, Morgan?
Yeah, he's totally British, and I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. I knew Rick was British.
Yeah.
Like every other person on the show is British or Australian.
Yeah, I know.
I'm always amazed, and it's one of those things, even with watching, say, Hugh Laurie on House, and I've just gotten so used to him having an American accent on the show that when I go back and watch a bit of Fry and Laurie, I'm just completely surprised. I'm like, why is he talking like that? I didn't, I forget that he's British. I forget people are British.
You know what?
And,
Also, the other doctor that was on House, I think he was either British or Australian. He's now on Chicago Fire. Well, he's been on Chicago Fire for like 3 years now. And I forgot even what he sounds like with his British accent because he's been playing an American for so long now.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that Gillian Anderson initially had a British accent. And when she came to the States, she ended up learning how to lose it. So she can switch back and forth between a British and American accent pretty easily.
Yeah.
And I had a classmate that was like that as well when she was talking about like customs from home, from Britain and whatnot. As she was talking, she started to slip into her native accent, which I thought was kind of cool. But anyway.
So, Randy,
Science fiction.
what's been going on with you lately? Film Sack, always an enjoyable listen. What's been your favorite movie that you guys have sacked recently?
Oh my gosh! Wow. They've kind of sucked. I'll tell you, we did that. Wow, this is a really hard question for me. What's my favorite film that we've sacked recently? And what's funny is we're nominated for a podcast award, and we were asked to come up with like a 5-minute segment that's very representative of the show. And so it caused me to go and listen to lots and lots of Film Sack. And I couldn't find 5 minutes. Like every time I came across a section where I was like, this is it. This is what we should send them. I found myself listening on for a long time and forgetting about it and not liking it anymore. Total Recall is as far as I'm concerned, the best episode we've had in a long time.
Why is that? Is there a certain thing about that episode?
We all click with the movie.
Okay.
It's just something that the four of us all had in common 100%. And it's not that bad a movie, and it's based on a really entertaining story, and it's hard to do it wrong. I think we'll sack the new Total Recall here in about a year, and it'll be interesting to see if we love that as much. But
there's not going to be any Get Your Ass to Mars. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, Film Sack is a strange beast because on the one hand we try really hard to find movies that we're going to make fun of, but you can't do that all the time, right? Or you just slowly slide down to movies that no one's seen and no one cares about. So you have to occasionally watch things like Wrath of Khan and see what happens. And what happens is we have a lot of fun watching those things and dissecting them. And those are often our best episodes, the ones where the whole audience knows everything we're talking about.
All right, so welcome aboard. We're going to talk about the weekly, the news, the sci-fi news of the week. You may end up going, wait a second, wasn't there this big convention in San Diego with lots of news that came out of that? Yes, I decided to take all the Comic-Con news and put it into our big question, our discussion section at the end of the news. So you guys listening, don't worry, we will talk about Comic-Con. But first, the last Starfighter TV spinoff with virtual reality scenes in the works. I know, Brad, you're a huge Last Starfighter fan.
Yes.
Are you pretty pumped about this news story?
Kind of. I'm very leery about anybody touching a classic. You know, you look at. I think that there are certain films that you should never go back and try to redo.
Like Star Wars?
Yeah. Well, if somebody were to go back and redo Episode 4, absolutely. I'm talking if somebody were to say, you know, Stanley Kubrick had a great idea for 2001: A Space Odyssey, but I think we need to reboot that. You don't touch 2001: A Space Odyssey. You don't touch... trying to think of another sci-fi classic. Okay, insert your favorite sci-fi classic here. One that hands down people like Episode 4 of A New Hope.
Total Recall.
2001.
That was mine, right there.
Total Recall. I wouldn't necessarily call it a classic, but like Blade Runner, going back and redoing Blade Runner, I think that's something that you shouldn't touch either. There are certain things that you shouldn't touch, and I would argue that putting The Last Starfighter on that is on that list. Now,
But-
is it Space 2001: A Space Odyssey? No, but I think that especially if you're from the 80s, as I am, that movie was so fun, and to me it was like the first time I really saw computer animation really done in a movie at that level. It was something that I was just so excited about in every way, shape, and form. And you know, this is pre-internet, so any information you got was from like reading a newspaper or reading a magazine, and I just devoured it.
So it holds a special place for you, Brad.
It holds a special place in my heart, and so I'm leery now. From what we're seeing, they're not entirely redoing it. They're taking a slightly different approach, it sounds like.
It's going to be in the same universe. It's not going to retell the original story. It's basically going to be a serialized story about alien law enforcement.
Yeah.
With the added twist that these guys are working with a virtual reality company to take certain scenes, and if you have like Oculus Rift or one of the other VR units, you'll be able to actually step into the scene with your goggles on.
Uh-huh.
Which is interesting. I'm going to sound like a curmudgeon when I say this, but I'll be damned if I'll buy a 3D television. I think it's ridiculous.
They're pretty sweet sometimes. So I said the same thing, and we ended up buying one because the 3D TV was actually cheaper than a non-3D TV. So I did not seek it out, and to be perfectly honest, I use it very minimally, but there are a few things. I am a huge Metallica fan. I purchased their concert in 3D like the fanboy that I am, and I loved every minute of it, but I don't... The new Terminator will come out in 3D. I will buy that in 3D because it's Terminator. Magic Mike XXL. If my wife wanted it and it was 3D or not 3D, I would by no means purchase it in 3D so that Channing Tatum's abs do not poke me in the eye.
So many 3D abs. I can't believe how many abs.
He's got to look at
That,
12.
you know what, Magic Mike XL? That's a sci-fi movie. You should be talking about that. That is entirely science fiction, what's going on those men's stomachs. It was like 300.
Yeah.
You go see it, Randy?
Yeah.
You can say it. It's okay. We're all friends here.
Wait, I thought you... I wondered if you... I think you just asked me to go see it? That's what I was saying yes to.
Oh, okay. All right.
Together.
So, Randy, stay on you for a second. What do you were you a fan of Last Starfighter back in the day, or did you?
No, sir. And I can't help comparing it to not Dune. There's never been a good version of Dune. I can't help comparing it to Tron because Tron was another one of those things that you had to be there. It happened in the 80s. It was this really specific moment when sci-fi went all computer, and then someone comes along just a few years ago now and says, we're remaking this, and I'm just like, no, I don't care. Sequel, I don't even care about that. And I went, I don't know, I think the Tron sequel was okay, but it definitely took luster off the original, and that's what I don't like to see for Last Starfighter.
Okay.
All right. Well, it ought to be an interesting experiment if they get far enough that it actually goes. Because they haven't even discussed whether it's going to be on traditional cable. It's going to be an online thing. It hasn't gotten that far yet, so we'll see if it actually goes into production and they get a deal somewhere. So it's kind of putting the cart before the horse, or whatever that saying is. I don't know. Okay, moving on to next story, comic series Herald, to be adapted for TV. I was not familiar with this comic until this story cropped up this week. Created by writer John Riley and artists Tom Rogers and Dexter Weeks, Herald is an alternate universe story in which a time-traveling Nikola Tesla teams up with writer H.P. Lovecraft. I totally thought about you, Brad, when I saw this story. And other historical figures to save the world from various cosmic horrors. The TV series, which will be produced by Romark Entertainment in partnership with Mark Stone Pictures, I don't know, that means nothing to me, will largely stick to its premise. No other details have been announced about this project. But that sounds pretty intriguing. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see, because I after I saw this story, I had kind of heard that somebody was doing something, and I went, oh, I wonder if that's going to last more than a couple of issues. And it seems that it has done that, and they've got a trade paperback out that you can pick up on Amazon.com, and yeah, it sounds like a really awesome premise. And the first trade paperback, they are looking for Amelia Earhart.
Have you read it?
I have not. It is on my Amazon wish list, and I get paid tomorrow, so I think I will be buying it.
Well, you have an extra incentive now, since it
Absolutely
might be made into a TV show.
Yep.
Oh, you should have bought it yesterday on Prime Day. It was 3.7% off.
That is a sales bonanza.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I'm glad I don't have a Prime account.
Get a 50-gallon bucket of lube for like half off, right? There were deals like that.
Yeah, it wasn't even that useful. The stuff that they had on sale.
Yeah, like I popped in a couple of times, and it just looked like stuff that you would normally see on their daily deals, and nothing spectacular, and anything that was remotely decent was already sold out. So.
Yeah, they actually had 15% off any warehouse deals, which works in Dave's favor because I finally bought a frickin' mixer so that I can make this horror movie podcast that he keeps hounding me about. So I got that for like $20 off what it was. So I got some benefit out of it.
That's good.
My plan worked.
And if it's a kitchen mixer, all you got to do is stick your hand in it to make a horror movie.
See, boom, done.
Oh, there's gold over there.
Somebody get a drum. We don't have that. We don't have a drum.
My drums are not here. I have a practice pad. I can hit rubber if you want me to. That sounds real bad. There it is.
Perfect. Hey, don't you think there's been a lot of time travel comic books recently? Because isn't there what is it called? Something Knots.
There's time travel everything. Joe Dirt 2, he time travels.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
I've only ever seen the first one.
The second one literally came out on Crackle today, and then he travels through time and gets farted on for 5 minutes. I turned it off.
I
would have turned it off too then.
And have you guys ever talked about Outlander on this show?
No.
Is that the one with
That's the woman that goes back in time.
Yeah, it's a Scottish time travel story. I'm surprised because it's solid sci-fi. It's real, it's real straight up time travel into the past. But it's that blending of sci-fi and fantasy that so many things are nowadays.
There isn't any actors that are supposed to be playing Scottish people but that have a different accent, is it? Are there?
No. They're all Scots. It's kind of cool that way.
No, I think I've shied away from that show just because It seems like it's got too much of a fantasy element and not enough sci-fi. But I could be wrong.
Well, you could give it a watch and find out.
Yeah, might as well.
Worst case scenario, you'd be sucked into another show.
Oh no, I'd hate for that.
Oh no. Watch.
The comic book that I was thinking of was Chrononauts, I believe.
Yeah, it's Mark Miller's Image title that he's doing.
Yeah, and I think that's being adapted into either a TV show or a movie or something like that.
I think we're seeing a lot of properties, you put it out and they're throwing money and contracts at people.
Yep. Okay, this is pretty cool. I watched this video and I was so excited for the new Star Trek movie. So the cast got together with Idris Elba, who's going to be playing the big bad in Star Trek Beyond, and they made a video pimping out the charity fundraiser they're doing, where you can make a donation of $10, and that will give you a chance to win a trip to wherever they're filming it. I think Los Angeles, at least for the part that you'll be watching, and a walk-on role in the movie. And it's really cool to see these guys not only just kind of hanging out on the set of the Enterprise, but in their street clothes.
Yeah, that was a little trippy.
Yeah, it's kind of out of place, right? Because you're so used to these people playing these characters on this set in their Starfleet uniforms, but then you see like Zachary Quinto without the ears, and Simon Pegg very non-Scotty looking, and then Chris Pine in his jeans, and then at the very end, Idris Elba shows up. You're like, oh my god, this is awesome.
I didn't know. I had heard a bad rumor this week, and it was dispelled for me that Michael Giacchino is going to be scoring the third film. I was convinced that they had let him go, and someone else was going to be scoring the third film, and that takes a huge part of my interest away from this new Star Trek series. I just think Michael Giacchino is the best thing making music in Hollywood right now. I'm so glad to find out that he's actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you know what? I wasn't really too sold on the original score, but then I watched the movie the 2009 movie. I watched it over and over again, and it just, how it kind of just becomes part of an experience. And I'm like, you know what? I changed my mind. I really, really like this score a lot.
His original theme that's at the top of that film is genius. It gets overused. If you watch that film and then watch Into Darkness, like back to back, you'll start to go, stop. You're playing the same theme over and over and over. But that theme, when you start that 2009 film, is just, it's wonderful.
Have you guys, show of hands, have any of you guys seen this promotional video that I'm talking about?
Oh, there we go. Me.
You can assume that I have not.
Yeah, I need to ask, Matt.
Thanks, buddy.
Randy, Matt is enough of a sci-fi fan to be on the podcast, but still.
Well, Dave and I go way back, and I think that's 80% of the reason I'm here.
You're just part of the. You're just part of the network now. We don't even think about it.
We're trying to brainwash you into becoming more of a sci-fi fan.
Yeah.
Like that old man that goes to the diner every morning and gets a cup of water. No one is asking him to leave because they feel bad. Keep letting him show up, not paying for anything.
Yeah.
Well, this is the beauty of sci-fi, because it blends with every other genre in some way.
Mm-hmm.
If there's anything you like, you're eventually going to have a crossover with sci-fi.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I know enough about sci-fi to like make a case, but I'm not.
You're not a Trek nerd.
No, not at all. But I've seen a bunch, and they made the comment before about how I'm going to be really happy about Doctor Who. It's because when they talk about Doctor Who, I just check out. I mentally and emotionally check out. I die on the inside because I just don't get it. I don't get it.
And I'm sitting here playing with like little Funko Pop Daleks and Cybermen.
And
I want to join your side, because as much as I've seen every episode of Doctor Who, I totally understand Doctor Who. Like, What did we say was an acquired taste just a few minutes ago? Crap. Well, Doctor Who is not an acquired taste. Doctor Who is a taste that you're either going to like or not like. And it's totally understandable to not like it.
Yeah, but, coming from the outside looking in, as a fan, you can kind of understand why people will not like the show because it's so outlandishly crazy. It's like, I don't know. I can totally understand why you wouldn't like it because it is really silly at times.
Right. And so, for example, if you don't like zombies, there's no number of episodes of Walking Dead that's ever going to do anything for you. You're just not going to like zombies, and they're not going to stop bringing zombies. And Doctor Who has the big bad in Doctor Who is a trash can. It's the dumbest thing. And if that doesn't entertain you, you don't stand a chance.
Fact.
All right. This last story, I know Brad is going to just be head over heels, squealing like a little schoolgirl over. Constantine may be resurrected by an appearance on Arrow.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yes.
Yeah. So, executive producer Wendy Miracle told yeah, we really want to do it.
I think it's Maricel.
Oh, Maricel, okay.
I liked Miracle better.
It's a miracle!
It's like, America's a miracle.
Yeah, it's an American miracle.
It's Wendy Maricel. I think that Stephen Amell has talked about her in con appearances and stuff like that.
So they've been talking to DC about doing it. It's just a matter of politics and also working with the actor's schedule now that he's not actually producing the show Constantine. Maybe he's moved on to something else, so they have to kind of actually work with his schedule to appear on Arrow, and it sounds like this new season of Arrow, there's going to be a lot of mysticism, a lot of magic going on, so he'd fit perfectly in with the new season.
Yeah, I'm totally psyched for this, and I really think that depending on, again, Matt Ryan's schedule, and I know that when he read for the part originally for the show, he was doing a play, and for the play he had a full beard. So he read for the part, and the execs are like, "This is not the guy. What are you doing?" And yeah, they fought for him, and he got the job, and he was then done with the play, shaved the beard, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's totally the guy."
Tell you what, the Flaro universe, the Flaroverse, the Flash Arrowverse is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, they can't do any wrong right now.
Yeah, I think things are going to get interesting when they get to the Legends of Tomorrow, because there's a lot of. It is possible to have too much of a good thing, and if mishandled, I think that they can have too many plates in the air and have them start to crash around them. So.
But it sounds like they're going to be slowly working in those characters in the first half of the season, the first half of the season for both the Flash and Arrow. So we'll already kind of know these characters, and then they'll spring the whole Legends of Tomorrow in January or February of 2016.
As much disdain as I now have for Jeff Johns with what he's done with the comics, he's done magical things for the Flash television show. So I think that he's savvy enough that he's not going to allow people to make rash decisions or stupid mistakes. So I think that he's a shrewd enough business person, and he's a shrewd enough writer, at least for the show, and he's done some wonderful work in the past. Not lately, but
let's move in. Let's actually segue, since we're talking about that. Let's segue into our big question or topic of the week, which is San Diego Comic-Con, and let's start with the Flash, Arrow, Gotham, Supergirl panel. I watched pretty much the whole thing, and they began. The Arrow panel began with Stephen Amell coming out there with his brand new green Arrow suit, and he did an intro, which I think sounds like it's going to be the new intro for the show, and he calls himself Green Arrow. which that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is it? I'm sorry. It's just like I'm so whelmed. I don't know. Tell
Really?
me that this is great, please.
It's great.
You better rub your back and tell you everything's gonna be all right.
I don't like DC. What are you gonna do? DC has the worst superhero of all time in Superman, and everything else seems to be like trying really, really hard to be different. I don't know.
Boo.
So you think Superman is the worst superhero of all time?
Yes, absolutely the worst superhero of all time.
Can I ask why?
Not
that I disagree or want to argue. I'm just curious.
I get no entertainment out of somebody who is not subject to any laws of physics or any sort of like logic. It just I just feel like, oh well, this I never worry about the fate of anything, and I get so focused on the storytelling that it just, I don't know, it's just, I'm the opposite of Scott Kurtz. I think it's Scott Kurtz who thinks Superman's the only reason to love comics.
I can really understand that though, Randy, because you start with the premise that this person or this alien has all these abilities, right? Where do you take the story? If there's no enemy that he can't defeat, then what do you do?
Right, and if he can, literally fly around the planet in reverse time, there is nothing he can't do. It's not just no one he can't defeat, but there's nothing he can't do, and it's just I don't know. It feels silly to me. So it bleeds over to the rest of the DC universe, where I constantly feel like, well, if Superman is a thing in this universe, then how am I supposed to trust what I think I know about Batman? And I love Batman. Don't get me wrong. I love Batman. It is possible to love Batman and hate DC. I do it every day. But there's just these characters that I never could find an interest in because they have analogs in Marvel that I always felt were more compelling.
Yeah, the Marvel characters are definitely more grounded, that's for sure. They're more human.
I'm sorry. I don't want to offend anybody.
No.
This is not a fun debate for sure.
No, you have to have our same opinion, Randy, or else.
Yeah, our way or the highway, Randy.
Just wrapping up.
No, we don't think that.
Wrapping up the Arrow Season 4 part of Comic-Con. New costumes, and that's about it. So let's segue from that to you were talking about Batman. They released the Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice trailer, and to defeat Superman, you must have a super costume, and Ben Affleck has the whole super armor, or the Batman super armor, or whatever you want to call it.
So, based on what we just learned of Randy, I want to know his opinion on this movie. Obviously, this is your favorite and least favorite superhero in one movie. They are fighting. I know that you want Batman to win, but
right, yeah, of course I want Batman to win. I think anybody who believes in America wants Batman to win. I don't understand, and I've never, as long as I was a little kid when the Christopher Reeve Superman movies were coming out, and I've still, even then, I didn't understand how Superman was ever threatened. Like, you could threaten other people, and maybe you could wrap up Superman in kryptonite or something, and then you could kill other people if you were really evil. But you can't really do anything about Superman other than wrap him up in kryptonite. So it just doesn't, I don't love Ben Affleck in the role. It's his first show, and I wish there was a standalone Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne film first, because I'm not prepared to get into him in 15 minutes.
Well, that was the other big announcement, was Ben Affleck's going to direct, co-write, and of course star in a Batman solo movie, but we won't see it for a while because we've got Batman versus Superman, then we've got we have Justice League movie, and all these other DC properties that are coming out with their, I mean, not DC properties, but yeah, DC characters coming out with their movies. And
I've seen all the Batman films. I saw Batman. I saw Dark Knight like 7 times at IMAX theaters. I enjoyed Superman Returns a little bit. I think that Man of Steel was rubbish, and I just don't. I don't know. I guess I'll go see this. I don't know. I probably not, actually.
It looks really good. I mean, the trailer looks amazing. We get to see Wonder Woman for the first time, and then we find out why Batman is so pissed off at Superman, because in this universe, Gotham City's right across the river from I'm having a brain fart. From
Metropolis.
Metropolis. Thank you.
Even I knew that. You should feel bad.
I do feel bad, Matt. No, one of the Wayne Industries buildings got demolished during the fight from Man of Steel, and apparently there were some people in the building, and that's his motivation to take on Superman in Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Can we maybe argue that this is starting to become a bit ridiculous and a stretch to make new movies?
To make new movies, what?
Like, and I don't know enough about comic books to know that if Batman and Superman ever fought in a comic book, I'm going purely on the stance of
yes.
I don't know anything. But to me, it's like they're stretching just to be able to make another movie that'll potentially make $1 billion. And that's kind of, and I'm excited to see this movie, but this is still kind of annoying to me. Because next you're going to find out that Aquaman is going to fight the Joker because the Joker killed one of his starfish.
No, you need to look at it this way. Marvel did something very smart. Without having their A-string, their quote-unquote A-string people, they created a franchise from Iron Man, who is considered a B-string character.
Yeah, he was just a drunk.
And
it was a long series of comic books about recovering from alcoholism and failing.
Well, that was part of the 70s, but looking at what they did, they were very smart in picking characters and building a solid base of individual characters, introducing them to the public, and slowly building up a whole support system to do the Avengers. Which
with
is
one hand tied behind their back because they didn't own a bunch of their own properties.
Exactly. They didn't have any of the mutants. They didn't have Fantastic Four, or Spider-Man, which are considered the cornerstones and prime properties of Marvel. But they did it, and they did it smartly. They did it. They took great risks, and it paid off. It paid off well. And DC kept having stumbles, and the only thing that they really did that did anything was the Batman stuff with Christopher Nolan. That did well. So DC finds itself in a very strange place in that they're trying to capitalize on what they have, and they've got strong properties. Batman, Superman, I mean, those are ridiculously strong properties, but Superman hasn't had a good film for a while. And now they want to have their Avengers, which is the Justice League. And instead of really doing individual films to build up the characters, like introducing us to Aquaman, introducing us to the Flash, they're doing a Batman versus Superman film and then kind of, jumping into Justice League before they do some of their other stuff. I mean, I would argue that you do. I think Randy's exactly right. You have the solo Batman film. We've already had our Superman film, but I mean, you do an Aquaman film, you do a Flash film, and then you do the same thing. You need to build that solid base. You need to get everybody on board with your characters so that they fully understand them. Ask the average person on the street who Green Lantern is, and they'd probably just shrug their shoulders at you. Who's Aquaman? They really don't know. And Marvel found themselves in the same position, and they need to do that. They should follow that same approach, but they're not. And This is going to be very, very interesting to see how this pans out for them.
I feel like we've had this discussion before.
and I think that we have.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see what the next 4 years brings for DC.
And I've also mentioned before that I believe the CW is doing actually a better job at slowly introducing the characters with the Flareoverse, which is just hate it.
Are you going to pull out the Benefer on us?
No.
Okay.
But speaking of the Flareoverse, Flash Season 2 adds Jay Garrick from, Earth 2, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The original, the Golden Age.
The Golden Age Flash.
Yeah. They actually cast, I forget the guy that they cast in that role, but he's not as old as, he's more in line with the age of Jay Garrick in the New 52 than he is the original Jay Garrick, who was kind of in his 50s. This new one's going to be in his 30s, I think.
Yeah.
They also mentioned Barry's got a new costume, and they mentioned a couple other things during the panel. They kind of tiptoed around Cisco becoming Vibe eventually, and also Caitlin becoming Killer Frost. We'll see if those two things happen in this next season of. But it sounds like they're going full, going from different worlds, not staying in the Prime universe, which is
yeah. They've at this point we've unleashed the multiverse type storyline. So now you get to see. I have a feeling that what they're going to do with Jay Garrick is that he will be essentially Earth 2, and he will be the Flash, but for Keystone City, which they've established is across the river from Central City.
Yeah.
So in that world, they don't have a Barry Allen, but they have a Jay Garrick.
And Cisco being the Vibe, he's going to be able to detect the different realities, the different multiverse. That's
which
his power.
I think that's a great take on Cisco's abilities from the comics into this in the Flareoverse, as you call it.
Hey, I don't call it that. Other people call it.
I'd like to not hear Dave call it the Flareoverse anymore.
I promise. I don't like saying it. It's just that's what it's called.
You could say the Flash Arrow universe.
We could call it the CW or whatever.
Or yeah, the CW, whatever. But just not Flaro.
Okay. What was I gonna say? I forget. Anyways, sticking with DC, the Suicide Squad movie unveiled. They showed the trailer during the panel, and then it got leaked online, and then they finally, I think on Monday, actually released the real thing online. You guys get a chance to see it?
Oh boy, did I! If Jared Leto sings 30 Seconds to Mars in this movie, my shirt's coming off in the theater. Don't even care. I love that man.
I would like to hear Randy's take on that, especially with DC's approach to, somebody at the con illegally recorded it and released it online, and now we're going to release it to you because if you're going to see it, you should see it in high quality. What do you think of the PR approach on that, Randy?
Yeah, well, I think there is a bright line between this leak was barely registering in the public, and this was enough that the best damage control is to just put it out there, and you can't measure where the line is. It's different for every leak, for every company, for every property that's being leaked like that. There is a lot of dissatisfaction whenever you make something an exclusive release. There's so much dissatisfaction that the line is close from the start. And it is not inevitable that things will leak, but as soon as they do, I think both of these groups did the right thing. And you got to remember, we're talking about filmmakers. We're talking about we're not talking about the people who are executive producers on a comic book. The filmmaker wants you to see what they're doing the way that they intend for you to see it, and it's just enormous to them that you not see the potato version of something that they put a lot of effort into crafting for you.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but the Deadpool trailer, the reason they haven't announced or haven't released that yet is because it's not done. They showed a not done version of the trailer at Comic-Con. That's the only reason why they haven't released that one yet.
It's absolutely vital that this discussion not just be us versus them in terms of audience and the filmmakers and so forth. And that's my big fear, is that we're just going to get into this, well, screw you, you're not giving me what I want, so I hate you. And that there's no fixing this. Nowadays, when you're making a big movie, when you're making a TV show, like Daredevil, there's a lot of money and a lot of time that goes into things like getting computer-generated action sequences set up right, and it takes so much longer than it used to. And you gotta feel for these guys. They're trying desperately to show the potential audience something. And Comic-Con is a big, crazy, beery bacchanal, and people make mistakes, and it's going to get worse. I promise you. The guy who managed to record the Warcraft trailer by putting an iPhone in his breast pocket, that guy is going to spawn a dozen more next year. He's like Hydra.
Hail
Hydra.
All right. Yeah, great discussion. I totally agree. It's there's no black or white. There's a lot of shades of gray in this issue, definitely. Okay. Green Lantern. They're not just doing one. They're doing multiple. They're going to do a Green Lantern Corps movie. Thoughts, Brad?
I'm a fan, but I'm more of a DC guy anyway, so I'm kind of biased in that regard.
So Randy hates you?
What did I do?
No, he didn't do anything.
Dave's just trying to start crap.
Yeah, he's stirring up the pot.
Never do that.
No, I was just saying that I'm more of a DC guy. I think it's really interesting that for the ground and the approach that I think DC is taking with their movies, I think that releasing or acknowledging that there's an entire Green Lantern Corps is going to be kind of a big deal to what Guardians of the Galaxy did for Marvel to expand out the universe literally for Marvel. That's what the Green Lantern Corps is going to do for DC.
It's going to be Hal Jordan, who's John Stewart?
John Stewart and probably Guy Gardner.
Not Kyle Rayner?
And maybe Kyle's. It depends on what they're writing and their approach is going to be, because there's just a lot of backstory to well, really all of those characters. So it'll be interesting to see who they leave in, who they take out, and what they do to put out the focus for the film and make the kind of film that they want to. They don't really have they haven't released anything as to what it's really going to be about. So. And
it's not going to be out till like 2020. So.
Yeah, we got some time.
The only thing I've heard is it's going to be what's his face is possibly up for the role.
Well, Chris Pine and Tyrese Gibson.
Yeah.
That's John Stewart.
Yep. So, all right, I think we're done with DC. Let's move on to Doctor Who. So, Matt, you can zone out now. We're going to talk about Doctor Who.
Awesome.
So Peter Capaldi made his first appearance at the Comic-Con. He's never been to the San Diego Comic-Con before. And they also divulged some very interesting story possibilities about what will happen to Clara and Missy. I did not hear what they said. Did anybody hear what they said at the panel?
Well, they were pretty cagey about stuff. I mean, Stephen Moffat was sitting right next to him, so they gave a lot of generalizations that Clara's going to be continuing her kind of tutelage of the Doctor and teaching him social niceties. I think they had a very clear definition of the relationship between the Doctor and the Master / Missy. And little teases here and there, but they were fairly tight-lipped about what's going to happen. So
it's going to be interesting to see the relationship between the Doctor and Missy this season, since it sounds like she's going to be in more than one episode.
Yes.
Because for God's sake, she was at the panel, so that's got to be significant in some way, right?
Or an amazing feint, right?
Yeah, which for how Stephen Moffat kind of operates, that wouldn't be surprised.
I think it's time for Stephen Moffat to retire. I feel like he was responsible for some of the best television of the previous decade, and he has just been steering this thing into a mess for years now. Just my opinion.
No, I could totally see where you're coming from, Randy. It'd be a good either put the show on hiatus for a while and let it catch its breath, or bring a new producer in and interject it with new life. I totally agree with you.
It makes me sad to say that, because seriously, the Eccleston and Tennant years have Stephen Moffat all over them, and he was amazing as a creative mind, just truly amazing. And it just, the last few years I have felt like this is a time travel confusion mess.
Was he part of Eccleston's run? I thought that was Davies.
No, but as a writer.
Oh, as a writer. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
He wrote some of the best episodes, and he still does write some of the best episodes. I don't think they're as good as they used to be.
Yeah, to me the Capaldi episodes have been such a radical diversion from. I can see where Randy's coming from. Where it was going with Matt Smith, it just kind of became more and more kind of romantic fantasy, and it was very much about the relationship between, Rory and Amy, and
then eventually.
Then you had all
Clara
of a sudden
and Matt.
Yeah, I mean there was flirtiness, but then she had Mr. Pink as her beau, so I mean there was love in that regard. And then you had the regeneration, and then you had Capaldi, and all of a sudden it was just like dead stop, pow. And then there was an entirely different feel, and for a few episodes there, we were all kind of in free fall, I think, not knowing everything that we'd come to expect in Doctor Who wasn't really there. You had this prickly guy who is now the Doctor, and we all had to try to get used to that new tone, and I think it's an important first step to getting it back on track from being a romantic, almost farcical series to a certain degree. So I think this next season, I think, is going to really make or break things, especially for United States audience.
Well, season 10, it's been renewed for 10th season, so we'll see what happens after that, I guess.
Yeah,
and I don't want to sound like I'm anti Stephen Moffat, because he's responsible for some of my favorite non-Doctor Who British television ever.
Yeah,
he's responsible for Coupling, which I think is one of the funniest things that's ever been written. He's responsible for Jekyll, which if you haven't seen,
I really enjoyed that show.
Yeah,
highly recommended.
I mean, it's in the States we'd call it a miniseries, right? It's a series of hour-long movies, basically. Oh my gosh, Jekyll is so freaking good. Stephen Moffat has done some wonderful things. I just can't get behind Doctor Who the last few years. I'm sorry.
I can totally see where you're coming from, Randy. Okay, Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead both had panels, or they were represented at Comic-Con, and both had trailers that were released. I'm so excited about Fear the Walking Dead, you have no idea. Such an interesting premise to actually finally see how the zombie apocalypse started, especially the whole juxtaposing, and they've been really good at the teases they've shown, where you see normal life and then you see a walker in the background, and it's going to be interesting. And I've heard that it's going to be one of the things they're going to focus on is the lack of reaction to this, or the utter confusion involved in what the hell is going on. And something like this would definitely cause both one or both of those things to happen. And it's going to be cool to see how it all goes down and how the world goes to pot very, very quickly. Are you guys excited about Fear the Walking Dead?
Yes.
Kind of. Like, I don't know. I quit watching The Walking Dead partway through the 5th season.
Well, guess what? We're going back to just before the part that you really liked.
So yeah. And I'll end up eventually finishing the 5th season, but I'm not sure that I'll continue on to the 6th season. I don't know. The trailer that they released didn't really catch my attention much, so I wasn't like, yeah. And I kind of want to just go back to the comics and pick up where I left off, which was, I don't know, issue 90 or something. But no, I think it would actually be kind of cool to check out a different perspective to find out more, of where it all began and how people started to react to it. So I think that would be kind of cool, because where we picked up was, it's been going on, Rick's in a coma, he wakes up, everyone that he knows is gone and or dead. And so it's just a matter of trying to survive, coming across survivors, who can you trust, while all battling zombies and whatnot. So, no, I think it's cool. I'm just down about it being in California. I'm so tired of things being set in like LA or New York.
Oh, I see.
It'd be nice to just, I don't know, set something in Nebraska for all I care. It'd be different.
But Nebraska doesn't have the opportunity for cameos by celebrities as well.
Yeah. Well, if they're on
zombie, I don't know who's who would do a cameo.
David Lee Roth.
Yeah, it's zombie
Right.
David Lee Roth.
And I mean, it would just be nice to see a different setting besides the usual cities where they seem to set all the TV shows and movies in. I liked The Walking Dead because it was in Georgia and it was in Atlanta, and Atlanta isn't quite as used or depicted in television and movies. I mean, it is to some degree, but not nearly as much as you have like Los Angeles and New York and San Francisco and whatnot.
They get generic because, like, if you only saw one episode of True Blood, you know that thing's in Louisiana, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you only saw one episode of Daredevil, I don't know, it's maybe some city.
So I mean, they don't necessarily have to pick a city, but I mean, I guess with The Walking Dead actually saying, "Oh, we're going to Atlanta," so you might actually need to pick something somewhere, at least close to something. But I don't know. It would be nice to see something different.
Okay, let's touch on one more thing about Comic-Con, then we'll move on, and that's Star Wars. I've saved the best for last. I thought Star Wars, The Force Awakens, and Star Wars in general stole the con because they did a couple of really, really awesome things. Number one, they brought Harrison Ford back, his first public appearance since his plane crash. And number two, they brought their entire 4,000 people Hall H crowd. They said, J.J. Abrams said, let's go down the street together and watch a concert out under the stars with fireworks. and I don't know if John Williams was the conductor, but the orchestra was there, and they had a Star Wars concert with an orchestra, and everybody got their own lightsaber, which I thought was pretty awesome.
Yeah, as I recall, it kind of screwed over Kevin Smith's Yoga Hosers panel because so many people left.
Really?
Yeah. And a lot of it would have been, some of his audience would have been a part of that group. So
interesting. Now it was cool to see the new cast next to the old cast, and it was awesome to see finally Harrison Ford doing something public for Star Wars. And then they didn't have a new trailer, but they had this cool behind the scenes footage thing where you could actually see things that hadn't been seen before. For example, Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia in costume. But she looks good she looks like what you would imagine Princess Leia would look after so many years between the last film and this one.
So I want to go back to one thing you said. John Williams was not there.
Okay.
They played a special message on the big screen from John Williams before the San Diego Symphony got underway, and the person directing live was one of the usual directors for the San Diego Symphony. I was not there. I know this because I read every detail about every little thing and I was so jealous.
Yeah.
That
would have been cool. Especially outside at night with fireworks. Come on.
It's brilliant.
Marvel/Lucasfilm has gone too far. This is upped the Comic-Con game to a level that no one else wants to be, and now there's going to be all kinds of letdowns when you stand in line for 44 hours to get into this one panel and it doesn't result in walking over to the Embarcadero and everybody having orgasms out on the street together.
I would agree with that if it were. I mean, Star Wars is so big, and yeah, they've fired up the hype machine. But I mean, Star Wars is, especially after the first 3 films that they just released, is terrible. They really needed to do something to redeem themselves, and I think a grand gesture like this to get people really pumped about it, I think, was probably one of the smarter things they could have done. Because I think if they hadn't have done anything as big as this, I'm not sure. I think people would have probably felt let down somehow.
Yeah, and the alternative to rewarding the people who waited for 44 hours is rewarding people randomly who everyone else will feel doesn't deserve it. So there's no win here in terms of the rest of the world. So at the very least, you can make the 6,000 people you got happy as possible. But it just, I'm so jealous.
What next year at Comic-Con, what can Disney or one of the other big studios or companies do to top what Disney did with the Star Wars panel?
But is it again? If it's you couldn't do something like this for the Green Lantern Corps movie or announcement or whatever. Star Wars is just so iconic sci-fi.
So they are going to have a huge panel on Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and everyone who attends is going to go to space right then. That afternoon, we're all going outside getting a spaceship.
We're going to Comic-Con.
They really stood in line for 44 hours for that panel?
A few people who were right at the front.
Wow, that's crazy.
The hardcore people. Super hardcore
so
people.
Branson shows up and just flies you to space?
Yeah, Richard Branson.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, let's get our drink on, the Geeks Drink of the Week. And we're going to the original Battlestar Galactica series for this one. It's Ambrosia. And when I first saw this, I'm like, there's an actual recipe for this? And it turns out, no, nobody really knows exactly. Nobody's really sure what Ambrosia was. Some have said it was supposed to be absinthe or like a kind of wine, but the website Geeky Chef came up with their own recipe. And the ingredients include, and please help me out if I screw up the pronunciations of these because I'm stumped. 6 ounces of, is it Midori?
Midori.
What is Midori?
Melon liqueur. Green.
Yeah, it's like lime green.
Okay. Randy, I knew that you would know that.
Yeah.
4 ounces blue
Caraco.
Curaçao?
Curacao.
Oh, Curacao.
Whoa, really?
I've always heard it Curacao, but I
I always heard it was Caraco.
maybe
That's kind of
Surprise!
depending on the area of the country that you're from, different dialects maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, in Wisconsin, Matt, it might be Curacao.
Well, no, that's true, and we're not as
And then the
fancy
other thing
as
too is
California.
like I never know how things are said in Wisconsin because I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally this, and then Brad's like, no, that's actually this. I'm like, but it's spelled like this, like villas, like it's villas or something.
Vilas, yeah.
Yeah, villas, and I'm like, that's villas where I'm from.
Yeah, it's Phyllis where I'm from. What the hell's wrong with you?
For an American who moved to Canada, it's even worse for like common words that you've known your whole life
Well,
were
you've
pronounced a certain way. You get here, you're like, they look at you like you're an idiot for saying something that you thought was true.
Well, you've got
Right.
French,
You've got
and,
French
and some of the native languages in the area. I'm sure it just all blends together.
Yeah, you've got Native Americans up there.
Try explaining to someone via text the difference between a brat and a brat.
And, it took me several months to actually read brat fries. Like, in my mind, my first thought was, like, brat fry. Every time I saw brat, I thought brat. And
Yep.
I'm
You
finally
have
to the
me-
point to where I recognize it as brat.
You have me very interested in this drink. I want to get back to it. So blue curacao is an orange liqueur. It's not technically made from orange peel. It's this other fruit that's like an orange. So you have melon and you have orange so far.
Okay, and then finally, 2 ounces lime juice. What you do is you add all the ingredients to the margarita frozen concoction maker pitcher,
Or a blender.
or a blender, and add ice as directed in the owner's manual. Makes 36 ounces of delicious concoction. Garnish with a stemmed cherry and enjoy. And you can see more by going to geekychef.com, and we'll have the link in the show notes as well.
That actually sounds like a really great summer drink.
Yeah, it does. Let's all make it.
I'm heavily in favor of this drink. I want it right now.
Yes.
Well, we'll try to hurry things up, Randy, and then you can get off and make a cocktail for yourself because it's early. It's a lot earlier in the night than it is for the rest of us where you are.
That's right. I'm out where the sun is still shining.
Yeah, you got plenty of time.
Nice.
All right, so we have this thing called the sci-fi recommendations. It's completely optional. I wrote mine in. I didn't see anybody else that wrote any recommendations. Do we have recommendations from the rest of the panel? Anybody?
Not that I can think of. I mean, I could recommend stuff that I've done on the alien invasion, but I just feel like that would be double dipping a bit.
It can be anything geeky.
I'm gonna give you one, but you go first.
Okay. Well, my wife and I started watching Sense8. It's a Netflix original series from, well, a bunch of people with a whole lot of geek cred. J. Michael Straczynski from Babylon 5 he's one of the writers, or the creator, along with the Wachowski siblings, of course, from Matrix. And then it stars people like Brian J. Smith, who was on Stargate Universe, and Martha from Doctor Who, Freema Agyeman. She's also in this. And it's basically about it's 8 people around the world who have a connection, like actually, what's the word I'm looking for? A psychic connection. Like they experience the other person's experiences, and they have no idea what the hell's going on. And each person has like a tattoo, the symbol 8 from the logo of this show on their body. So it's we only watched the first episode, so we have no idea where it's going to end up, and we're looking forward to more of them. It looks pretty cool so far. It's not hard sci-fi, but there's enough sci-fi elements in there to make it onto this podcast.
So
And then- Okay, go ahead, Randy.
I'm really interested, and I'm curious. What would you say is the rating of this show? Is it PG-13, R?
Oh, it's R. Like
Okay.
there was some violence and some sex. Like it's a pretty sexy show.
All right.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know where it's going to go from the first episode. We've only watched the first episode, so it those things may continue. I have no idea. But the first episode is pretty violent and sexy.
Understood.
All right, Randy, you had something?
So, it's got some science and it's got some fiction, and it's a documentary called "The Search for General Chao." And I don't know why this has just been on my mind. It started streaming on Netflix last week. I just think it's really funny that a documentarian decided to try to go back in time to 19th century China and discover what this chicken dish that we're all familiar with is named after. It's I don't know.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, I recommend The Search for General Chao on Netflix.
I've seen it pop up across my stream like as a recommendation. I'm like, huh, maybe I'll watch it.
Can you explain it a little bit more, Randy? Like I'm a little bit confused. So someone is trying to track down where the recipe came from or what the recipe.
Well, okay, so it just asks the question: who is General Cho, and why are we eating his chicken?
Oh.
And the answer isn't obvious because this is not a name that is meaningful to really anybody, as far as historians go.
Mm-hmm.
And so this guy Ian Chaney decides to, explore his origins and find this General Cho person and understand why the hell there's a spicy chicken dish.
Netflix is great for documentaries. I've learned so much interesting stuff from things that I never thought existed or would be interested in something that they devoted a whole documentary to. That
can go really wrong. Like, I know a lot of people liked it, but I thought the documentary Atari Game Over was just horrible. It was just boring and useless, and I think there's a lot of that on Netflix. It's like a home to a lot of things that are just passion projects that aren't actually entertaining.
But then you have the TED Talks. Like you can,
you
can watch whole channels of TED Talks about similar topics. Like there's like sci-fi TED Talks, and there's like, I don't know, there's a bunch of them, which is pretty awesome.
Is TED losing its mystique? I mean, do you remember when TED was a secret and seeing videos out of TED was a big deal?
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if TED Talks are now pretty much anybody can, if you have a good reason and a slideshow and 20 minutes on why we should be punching holes in the right side of the paper instead of the left, you can have a TED Talk.
And there's different levels too, right? I mean, there's the main TED, then there's TEDx, and then there's TED.
TED, insert other country name for some reason. TED Israel, TED China, whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of getting watered down.
I'm just not as blown away as I used to be by a new TED Talk. Somebody says so, and it's actually hurting some of the people that I think the most of. Like there's a new TED Talk by Mary Roach. Yeah. Anybody can be on TED.
Yeah, but it's Mary.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to be on TED next week.
And what would you talk to me about?
I don't know yet. I'm still working on it. It's a secret.
That's fine. They don't mind.
Before we get out of here, I just realized that Matt has not been on the podcast since Terminator Genesis came out. Is that right? Is that correct? Or
yeah, because I saw it the day after the last time we did one.
Yeah. So give us a brief spoiler-free review. Did you like it?
I did enjoy it a lot. the timeline is really confusing at one point, but once you understand it, it's kind of cool because they had to take a lot of time to make it make sense with it still being so confusing. Because it's like the movie starts in the future, and then he goes back to the past, which is the start of the first movie. But the timeline is different, but you don't figure it out for like another 10 minutes, and then it's all over the place. They bring it full circle, and they introduce like a new type of robot, which you kind of assume, and they kind of retell what Skynet is. So essentially, Genesis is a new operating system that takes over the world.
So it's replacing Skynet, right? Sort of in a way.
Skynet is Genesis in this movie.
Okay.
But Skynet / Genesis is a quote unquote person. It's a robot.
Okay. So has the franchise changed enough for it to give enough new life and for them to make more movies, and they're talking about making a TV series? Do you think it's
changed enough? No. Do they have enough to go off of? Yeah. The end of the movie, you can tell that there's going to be another movie, or there's going to be a continuation of what happened. At the end, you think Arnold dies.
Go
again.
Well, it's not really a spoiler.
Yeah.
But he gets dumped into the vat of what the T-1000 is, the liquid metal, and then he comes back and says, "Oh, I was upgraded."
Huh.
That's not the end of the movie. There's something that happens after that leads there being another movie.
Okay. All right.
That would be much more of a spoiler than that. So that's. But yeah.
Let's end it right there. All right. Cool review. All right. Thank you, Matt.
I even kept swear words out of there.
Thank you. You know what? Congratulations, everybody. I think this is the first Sci-Fi Geeks Club that we've done in a long time where nobody is sworn. And
Brad, don't screw this up.
I'm really happy.
You know what? F you.
Oh.
I was slightly tempted to.
I've had my pad. I've had my piece of paper, my pen handy the whole ready. I'm prepared now. All right. So if you like what we talk about in this podcast, the news, then you might like our website, gncasts.com. We have a thing 2, 3, 4 times a week called the Sci-Fi Geeks Sheet, basically just the latest sci-fi news. So if you can't get enough of what we talk about on the podcast and just need more, check out the Sci-Fi Geek Sheet at gncasts.com. We have some news. This is Anessa's last appearance as a regular panelist on the Sci-Fi Geeks Club, and it's going to be very sad not to have you here pretty much every week. But Anessa, you're welcome back anytime you want. If we need a fill-in host, you're more than welcome to come back anytime that you want.
Sweet.
Yay!
And you can still catch. Anessa's not going anywhere. She's still going to be with Galactic Netcasts. She's still going to be on the Alien Invasion podcast. So if you can't get enough, if you miss Anessa so much and just want to hear another podcast, we have the Alien Invasion. She's been on that show for all 150. Well, not all 151.
I came in through like episode 40 something, 50 something.
So for the most of the time we've been doing it, you've been on the show. Definitely.
Boom.
All right, Randy Jordan, thanks for being our guest this week.
You're very welcome. I want to announce that we're entering the last couple of minutes that I'm going to be on this podcast.
That's a good thing we're wrapping it up.
It's a big moment for everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Where do you want to direct people online to find your stuff?
Twitter.com/Randy Deluxe.
All right.
Randy Deluxe.
Yeah.
That tickled me just right.
Okay. Very well.
It's intended purpose, right?
Yeah.
Boom.
Done and done. All right. Yeah, Randy, thank you for coming on and spending an hour with us, geeking out. And that's it. Thanks for listening, everybody. And I'm Dave Nelson on behalf of Brad, Anessa, Matt, and Randy. We will talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye, Dad.